the cloud and what you can expect to see on your exam. For me, this is something that has been a huge push that we've seen since really, the past 10 years or so, maybe even stemming into a little bit longer than that. And so we really want to make sure that everybody understands, because it can be a little confusing. And so with cloud computing, we're trying to use shared computing resources that are remotely in somewhere that is not on premise, with the ultimate purpose, I think, at least, for providing hopefully improved efficiencies, maybe gain some performance, reliability, scalability, and ultimately security. Before COVID, I think we could have said, and you could probably save some money. But what we've seen is over the last 3 or 4 years that the pricing for the different cloud services has continually gone up, and the hardware has for on-premise has consistently gone down. So now I think that it's starting to plateau a little bit, and really it gets to a question on do you have people on staff that you can afford to whether it's on overhead or as other duties as assigned, do you have people on staff that have expertise that your organization can rely on, that can maintain and monitor and basically wear a whole nother hat? And the answer is typically no. People can't do that unless you have an IT department that's all they do. But the cost savings alone with labor is a way that we typically will sell that to any of our potential customers that come across there. And so with cloud computing, usually these devices are based on virtual environments, right? Virtual machines. You can outsource it to third parties like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, IBM, Red Hat, DigitalOcean, right? So many of them are out there. But typically, there's three models that we typically will use. And let me put them into the chat window, and then we'll go through and kind of talk around them, and then we'll come back to them. So there's the software as a service, there's platform as a service, and there's infrastructure as a service. With all of these, they're subtly different, but just different enough that I think that it ultimately makes sense. So software as a service, usually you're trying to take a specific app that's out there, so a piece of software, and instead of you installing it locally, now you're running it up in the cloud via web interface. And that's how Microsoft has moved towards. Easy example of that is Microsoft 365, but we talked earlier about Canva, and that is a huge software as a service. But that model of that monthly recurring revenue is one of the most important things for software companies out there. Another one is the platform as a service, and that's essentially you get the operating system built for you. And on top of that, you might want the operating system to have a web server. And so not only do you have the secure platform, but also you have the administrative privilege that typically you might actually get. But sometimes we see different things offered in different ways. And then the final one here, the infrastructure as a service, that gives you pretty much carte blanche access to everything, including you are responsible for the patching of security and the like. So keep that in mind. So those are the ones that we're going to cover here whenever we're jumping into it. And if you're not familiar with it, you can go out there and read all about it in these extra publications. Read all about it. The 144, 145, 146, NIST has published their guidance on what they recommend, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good. There's nothing short about these, right? They're very verbose, but it would give you a great understanding. If this is, if you're a solutions architect or, a enterprise architect, or even if you're, system administrator, if you're looking to make some sound advice for your customers out there, lean on the NIST, and then give them the Pinto, the Mustang, and the Cadillac. Remember, I talked about that as far as the different options that are available out there. You want to definitely include all the big players that are in the Gartner top right quadrant, like AWS, Microsoft, and Google. As the three 800-pound gorillas in the lead for cloud computing. IBM tried to make a play by acquiring Red Hat, and they're still significantly behind. Although I think a lot of Ansible folks might actually argue with me on that. And so I mention that because there's quite a bit of ways that you can kind of mix and mingle all of these different things. But at super high level, the user can use applications by the service provider. You don't have to do anything for it on the cloud. Basically, you just hit a website and you manage everything. You have a not a platform. You have a piece of software that you go through and just manage everything underneath it. Software as a service is great, but with each of these, you are having to pay a monthly fee. It's a pay-as-you-go model, quote unquote pay-as-you-go model typically. Usually commitments are either month to month or a year commitments, so 12 months for a little bit of a price break. Whereas platform as a service, you can actually have the ability to deploy anything on that platform that you want. So let's say that it's a fully patched Windows server, the latest and greatest Windows server. You don't actually have to do anything on that because whoever the cloud service provider is going to manage and control everything underneath it. And all you do is, stand up your web server, stand up your database, anything that runs on top of that platform. And then the last one here is the infrastructure. We call, there's keywords here with each one, right? So the software as a service is use, the platform is deploy, and then the infrastructure can be provision and deploy and run. Those are the components that we typically will look at whenever we're talking about these three in totality. So I say that because the people are widely using these all across the world. Many of us are developing next gen products on these, and it's important that you at least at a high level understand these. There's a few different types of clouds that are out there, and just showing you a few of them on the screen here. We have the private cloud, a public cloud, and then there's another one as well that is called a hybrid cloud, because usually some people also have a mixture of these as well. And so the private cloud is typically for the single organization. It is usually hosted on the cloud provider premises and managed and maintained by either a third party, like a managed services provider, and or the organization, right? Whereas the public cloud is an infrastructure that is for public consumption. And so this too is hosted up in the cloud, just like the word implies. And any of these entities are allowed to either own, manage, and operate. And most of the time, if you have a reason to, you can also be part of that specific cloud as well. And so because of that, it has really grown in popularity and really taken off, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. I remember, I first saw an ad in the Super Bowl probably about 10 years ago that was saying cloud this, cloud that, cloud this, cloud that. And then 2-3 years later, we started seeing more and more adoption. But it really wasn't until 2018 and really 2020 when COVID hit that those cloud service providers were well positioned to literally take over the world from on-premise to managing everything remotely. And it's a huge paradigm change from what you were doing to managing things up in the cloud, right? Because with cloud-based assets, that can be any resources within your organization, not just the cloud computing, but any on-demand, anything can be managed from anywhere, and it can be highly available and scalable all the while. I think that the biggest downside is that it's expensive now. It's expensive, and so usually you pay as you go and pay as you use as well. But there is tremendous upside to having reliability.